Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Hijrah Holistics. Today, let's discuss Hijrah is not a monopoly of the Muslimin. Now, what do I mean by this? So, many people, when they use the word Hijrah, meaning migration, we're automatically thinking of two previous historical Hijrah experiences that the Muslim community, the Ummah, practiced and experienced. The first was a group of Muslimin that Nabi Muhammad, peace be upon him, he sends to Abyssinia, to Ethiopia, over in Africa. He sends this group of Muslimin to protect their iman and to protect their practice of their religion, the practice of their way of life. From Mecca, where it was very dangerous at the time, over to a Christian land. So he sends them to a land of Christians and polytheists. But the thing is, those Christians and those polytheists there were not persecuting the monotheists. So they are being sent to this land. And then there's the second one, where Nabi Muhammad, peace be upon him, first he sends many Muslims up to Medina where they are going to be welcomed. And he is eventually going to be the leader of this community. Now, this is a community with large Jewish communities, and with a large Jewish population and a large polytheistic community as well. And eventually it's going to become a Muslim society. But initially it was not. It was a mixed society. I don't know the exact number of Christians and of non-Muslims, of so-called polytheists or so-called pagans. If you happen to know that, please put that in the comments. I'm very interested in this topic. But what I wanted to discuss is that the Muslims don't have a monopoly on this concept of migration to protect one's religion, one's life, and one's way of life. This is very, very ancient and very, very present in all of the prophetic tradition. Some of the examples that we have are Nabi Musa alayhi salam, including his brother, Nabi Harun, his sister Maryam, peace be upon them, Nabi Yusha alayhi salam, and Bani Israel, including the righteous among them. They all make Hijrah. They migrate from Pharaoh's Egypt, from Misr. So they migrate from slavery. So they leave slavery and go to freedom. They go from like an artificially constructed realm of a control system that was largely connected to spell work, magical workings, and a variety of manipulative political and economic tactics in order to keep people under control. So they migrate from this land into freedom. So they go back to the wilderness, into a garden-like existence, living organically and increasingly seeking to live in an ethical, prophetic manner. So they're coming out of Egypt at this time. Now, other hijras, where people were going into other lands for protection, and a variety of other purposes, could we consider Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam long before this, when he went down into Egypt? And certainly Nabi Isa and his mother Maryam, when they made Hijrah from Al-Quds area, from the Holy Land into Egypt to be protected. Now, in the biblical tradition, it says that they went to be protected from Herod. And Herod, he was the king at the time, and he was, according to the stories, he was killing all the firstborn males in the same way that Pharaoh had done during Musa's generation, and that Nimrod had done during Ibrahim's generation. So this is a recurring motif, a recurring theme, I should say, within the prophetic tradition of people going, and oftentimes a woman will be in a protective role, sometimes with a male caretaker. So Maryam goes with Isa into Egypt, into Misr, at making Hijrah, which is strange because they're going into a land that is not monotheistic. It was not a Jewish land. There were Jews there, Yehudis, whatever you want to say. So we look at these various hijras. It's for protective purposes. Like nowadays, what do you do? Like we don't have the ideal Muslim land right now. Around the world, people say, well, ideally for Hijrah purposes, you want to go to a Muslim land that has as much of Sharia enacted as possible. Now, actually, when you look at the legal systems of these countries, we can get into particulars, of course, and argue about all the little details, but the reality is the majority of Muslim nations have Sharia as a foundation for the vast majority of their law. You are going to hear the adhan all across the Muslim world. You are going to be able to pray in community all across the Muslim world. Now, in these same Muslim countries, you might have very oppressive systems where if you show a little too much religiosity, you might be up for observation or worse. There are many nations where it might not be particularly safe to be a visible Muslim. So what do you do? This leads to many dilemmas, many challenges, and this is much to do research about and much to pray about. So I would just, before closing, I just wanted to say that Hijrah is a process. And in the next video, I'm going to discuss that a little bit. But just to finalize, Hijrah is not the monopoly of the Muslimin. Many people have practiced it throughout history to get to a place of safety. Bani Israel has done it. The Jews have done it. The Christians have done it. Matter of fact, many Protestants in Europe, several hundred years ago, over several hundred years, they made Hijrah, they migrated, they made Exodus, and they even literally thought about it in biblical terms. They left areas of Europe where they were under persecution for religious purposes, for religious reasons. They didn't want to be persecuted by the Catholic Church. They didn't want to be caught up in religious wars. So they came to the New World. They came to the Americas and sought out a place where they could establish a safe place to raise their children and to practice their religious way of life. So these people were making Hijrah in a very real sense. It not necessarily in the Muslim sense, unless we consider the prophetic tradition to be innately Muslim. And then we have to consider that there is perhaps a hidden prophetic stream that exists within biblical materials, that is accessible, and that people find when they have faith, that Allah guides them to. And that they might come into all kinds of spiritual depths and realities that have not been considered by many people in the Muslim world or have been forgotten about at times. And then it's interesting when they revert, sometimes they see things that the Muslims might be missing, and they appreciate things that the Muslims might be not appreciating as much. So Muslims do not have a monopoly on Hijrah, and there are things that we can learn from the broader prophetic tradition. When we read histories of other non-Muslim people that are peoples of the book, we can utilize Quranic correctives. That does not mean that we discount their experience and what they have to say about their experience. We should listen to it. We should pay attention, because we might derive real insight that's valuable for us, especially in these strange days that seem to be quite apocalyptic. So, and this might enable us to find who our real allies are as we move forward, inshallah. So if you have any thoughts along these lines, and if you want if you can help me to think about this a little bit more so that we can provide as many tools to our brothers and sisters as possible to survive and thrive in these difficult days, we very much appreciate it. Until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.